Just like the previous video, we're going to focus on one type of reaction, which is decomposition for this video. As you've seen, decomposition is when you start off with one compound and it breaks apart into either smaller compounds or elements. And just like synthesis, we've got different types of decomposition. The first of which is if you start off with a metal carbonate. That is any metal linked to a carbonate. And if that is the case, if that compound is decomposing, you have the product of a metal oxide, the metal being the one from the reactant side. That metal linked to an oxygen, and that compound is our first product. So you've got the metal oxide plus carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is always going to be one of the products if you've got a metal carbonate decomposing. The second product is going to be whatever the metal is that you started off with, linked to an oxygen. So sodium and oxygen, when it reacts together, you get Na2O. Our second type of decomposition has to do not with a metal carbonate, but with a metal bicarbonate. And if you remember from chemical nomenclature, bicarbonate references to a carbonate that always has a hydrogen with it. And if this is the case, your products are going to be a metal carbonate, so our metal, which is sodium, bonded to a carbonate, plus CO2 plus H2O. And usually the CO2 and H2O stay the same if your reactant was a metal bicarbonate. The only one that's going to be different depending on our situation is the metal carbonate. Specifically, the metal. Whatever the metal is that you had in the reactant side, that's going to be the metal in the metal carbonate. Next, we've got metal hydroxides decomposing to form metal oxides and H2O. Again, H2O stays the same consistently if you have a metal hydroxide. The only thing that's going to be different is the metal in the metal oxide. So whatever the metal is in your reactant side, that is going to be the metal that you have as your product. Next, you've got carbonic acid, and carbonic acid is H2CO3. Carbonic acid always decomposes into H2O and CO2. Ammonium hydroxide decomposes into NH3 and H2O. Next, we've got an example of a hydrate. So remember from chemical nomenclature, a hydrate is an ionic compound that has water within its chemical structure. So CuSO4, 5H2O is an example of a hydrate. If this decomposes, it breaks apart into the ionic compound and the water. Lastly, if you have a nitrate, so whatever metal linked to a nitrate, so this compound, decomposing into a metal oxide, again, the metal being determined by whatever the metal is in the reactant side, plus NO2 plus O2. These two products do not change, but this changes depending on whatever the metal is that was in your reactant side. And that is it.